was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Be like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
I'm Chloe, I'm 21 and I'm a student at Stellenbosch University.
I'm Aya, I'm a student at the University of Cape Town.
I'm Holly, I work for the United Nations Association of South Africa. I'm a project coordinator for them.
I am Zizi Paul, I'm 21 years old and I'm a student at the University of Cape Town.
I'm Tiffany, I'm 26 and I'm a consultant and a writer.
I'm Savanya, I'm 22 years old and I am a student at Stellenbosch University.
One of the huge problems, and let's all just deal with this, is possibly we could argue that no one is doing anything about crime. No one's doing anything about violence, everybody's getting robbed and raped, and it's pretty much just the awfulness.
It all boils down to whether or not we kind of know what obviously she says the problem is crime, yeah? But how are we addressing it without playing the blame game to the wrong people?
Is the problem just crime though?
Is it just? We just need to find the root of it. Where is the root? Could we say it's just in police? Could we say it's just in people's lack of interest in taking a force in a community?
But I don't think the problem is just crime.
Yeah, I think
because
South Africa has a culture of violence which is pretty broad and it goes into a lot of different sectors. So it's some things that you would think of like criminal behavior, like getting robbed or getting mugged, but also stuff like domestic abuse or, I don't know, any kind of like a whole wide range of ways which we are violent towards each other.
Can't you say that crime has cured a lot of things? Because if you look at some of the most poignant images of like anti-apartheid struggle, it's like it's what's the image of somebody holding a dead child, it's the necklacing, it's this idea, and I'm saying this as a foreign national, hey, but like it's this idea that violence has solved problems. If you want to solve something, then it also links to the idea that protests have solved problems. So if you want to solve something, then you mobilize, and you mobilize in a certain way. And I think that is actually a culture within South Africa. And this is me saying this as a foreign national.
Yeah, I can see the foreign national in you coming out. But it's definitely not. See, there's the difference. If you've been in a protest that started from the beginning, where somebody has lived in a township that did not receive sanitation for like their whole life. They live in streets that literally smell like sewage their entire life. Coming to a point where you're angry, it's not about being angry and wanting to be violent towards the next person, the police or the government official. It's just this built up frustration of, listen, we voted you in, we brought you in, we trusted you, and you're now deceiving us. When people go into protest, it's not for violence. It ends up violence because of the ethos of a lot of people getting together and rallying together. There's nothing wrong with that, because that is what built this democracy, and not to say go and take it down.
There is something wrong with that though. Like there should be other avenues for people to express if they're unhappy and they're not getting like bread and butter issues are not being delivered, then we should be providing avenues where people can express that other than resorting to violence.
Also, I don't think violence justifies their acts, and if we allow that, I think it makes it acceptable for any other forms of violence, like domestic violence and violence against youth and things like that. I think we shouldn't say because people are hungry, because people do not have basic services and things like that, therefore it's acceptable for them to be violent against other people. I understand what you're saying, I understand their frustrations and things like that, but I think, like Holly said, there are many ways of dealing with the problems. There are many ways of holding government accountable, of holding the people, the leaders in their communities accountable and things like that.
Avenues of holding leaders accountable are very, very, very quickly being shut down, and that's why there is an escalation of this frustration and things.
I think we're placing a lot of emphasis on holding the government accountable, and that in a way is inferring that it's solely the government's responsibility to deal with such issues. And that's not the case. You know, as much as I'm supposed to be holding the Minister of, I don't know, Safety and Security accountable, I'm also supposed to be holding accountable the people within my own community. You know, so we need to stop placing like 100% of the responsibility on external entities, and maybe come to a point where we as local communities and even families take responsibility for the actions of the people around us.
But can families take that responsibility? Because the thing is, the reason that, especially within an African context, that and within a South African context, is the reason we hold government so accountable is because they have everything. Like, in a local community, what changes can you truly make when you don't have the resources, you don't have the this, you don't have the that, when governments are the ones who have all the money? You're seeing, like, I personally have been to, like, Parliament. There are more iPads there per, like, square 100 meters, like, than I feel in most provinces. They have everything. So, like, it's the same way when your life falls apart, you hold your parents accountable. Because your parents have everything. Your parents pay for everything. Your parents, like, sure, you could be a better child. I understand that.
For me, I feel that whoever's in power has said, we will fight crime. I don't think issues like safety, security, freedom from violence, more specific sort of issues are on the agenda. Crime is such a big deal, they almost need to make it more specific to areas and types of things that they aim to do, instead of just having this whole broad spectrum of we hope to fight crime.
If you look at Nyanga, for instance, kids prefer to go into gangsterism as opposed to getting an education, because one, it makes them get an identity, it makes them get a living, or get food on the table and things like that. So I think you need to firstly look at the grassroots problems and issues and the different locations in order to be able to solve the violence in all the places.
Crime is also a result of little things like how we raise our children. You know, it's a result of how much teachers and schools encourage children to participate in sport. You know, for example, me growing up in very black neighborhoods, you know, there was always this unwritten rule that as a girl, you had to be in the house before the lights go on. Whereas that same rule didn't apply to the boys, you know. And so we grew up in this culture where girls were very well behaved, I would say. You know, they would stay in schools, and then our brothers would end up in gangsterism and end up in all sorts of other devious and mischievous behavior. And that wouldn't have necessarily happened if my parents had said, both of you must be back in the house by the time the lights go on, you know. So simple things like that. Or you get that children who who play competitive sport are less likely to engage in, I don't know, illegal substances like drugs and alcohol when they're underage, you know. Whereas schools where children don't participate in any sports at all, there's nothing that's, first of all, that they're going to spend their time on, and there's also nothing to necessarily motivate them to stay out of that kind of behavior.
But again, that thing of kids who can engage in sports and kids who can't. So now, in terms of, think about the schools where people can engage in sports. Are those government-run schools? 9 times out of 10, they're not. I live in an area where kids are out of school by 3 p.m. Like, all the kids, like, for me as a Kenyan, I do not understand that. I'm like, what are you doing out of school by 3 p.m.? You should be doing some after-school activity. Yes. Somebody should engage in you. But, like, the thing is, it's usually government-run schools. So, like, sure, you want to have your kids doing things after school, but then you have to make sure that there's a system to do things after school, unless you personally are ready to run every netball.
Yeah, but these parents can't make sure there's a system. They're worried about putting food on the table. I mean, that's the prime concern. A parent in a township comes home and worries about where's the kid's next meal and who's washing their clothes. That's the prime concern of safety. That's where it boils down to in safety and security. For those people, safety and security means my child's alive, my child has food for tomorrow. So how does someone in that situation grasp this wide concept of, okay, we're trying to implement goals of safety and security all over the world, and we're trying to make everywhere safe to win. We have the highest crime rate in the world.
But I think the interesting thing to look at is like, how is safety and security then impacting on your ability to get those services? Like, how is it impacting on your food security, or how is it impacting on your education, or how is it impacting on whether you can access healthcare, those kinds of things, because that's when it does actually speak to, like, those kinds of daily issues or, like, daily struggles that people are facing.
The UN at the moment has a website that people are encouraged to go to and vote for certain goals that we want.
That's not very effective.
Well,
the first
Who
time,
has
the first
access to
time,
these
yes,
resources?
You're saying that it doesn't reach grassroots level
But it
people,
doesn't.
normal
Not
people.
It doesn't though.
But I'm a
Because-
normal person and I might have access to those things. Yes, I'm not the rest of the society.
But we feel part of those
Okay.
people that are empathetic to our nature. We feel, oh no, nothing's really affecting us. We're not getting shot when we walk outside our house.
Exactly.
We're not going to go on that website. We're going to go on Facebook.
I mean, a person I know that goes to university with me was kidnapped the other day. So violence affects me right on my doorstep. So my voice has an effect in terms of the UN plans.
Okay. When
You
I
can't
say,
say that what we say isn't
when I
valuable.
Say, when I say grassroots level, I mean the 60% of our country that's living in townships, living
Not
in
the
rural
10%
areas.
living.
Not the 10. Let me speak. Not the 10 people that's living in Rondebosch and Mowbray. You know. I mean, I don't mean to undermine, you know, the resources or the plans of the United Nations, but the website you just told me about. I am a 21-year-old student in the best university on this continent. But the first time I heard about that website was when Holly was speaking to me about it 2 weeks ago.
When you talk about websites, when you talk about access, when you talk about these internet things, it hits a 10%. And I run like an organization that is based purely online. And I know the problems it is that I know I'm only accessing because it's to do with sexuality and things like that. I know I'm accessing like tops 6% of the continent. And my whole thing is to reach the continent.
So I've also seen this in places like Samora Machel, Philippi, Googs, Langa, groups of people forming gangs or forming groups to fight crimes, to fight littering, to fight all these sorts of problems in their community. I can't say much about the other places, but I can say I can talk about Philippi where I've been, and I think this has reduced crime a lot. And it's not just the fact that those people are capable of reducing crime, but I think the fact that there are people trying to do something deters the children from coming. Yeah, they're playing an active role in trying to stop crime.
So my question is, if you guys are saying that the responses need to come from the grassroots, does that mean that processes like this that happen on an international level cannot make an impact at all on security for people in South Africa?
I like that question because I think the grassroots solutions only solve the problem temporarily. I don't think they solve the problem of violence, and they provide security for everyone in the communities and everyone in South Africa. I think involving organizations like the UN, involving the national government, and setting goals that will protect people and make people feel more secure. I think those things are far more important than having a couple of people every day protecting the community and things like that. I think having a stable solution and also having a long-term solution is probably a better way of solving violence and solving crime in our communities.
I think encouraging the civil society to get involved, to become more active, is an essential part of fighting crime.
But is it like boiling down to just you want people to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm gonna fight crime? Is that what we're asking? Is that what we're telling people? Because then we bring it down to the basic fact of they don't know how to. I wouldn't know how to. I wouldn't know how to wake up in the morning and prevent someone getting
do you want people to fight crime, or do you want people to be proud of their community? I think that's what it comes down to, because the thing is, what I've realized is you will fight for what you're proud of. Like I will fight for my partner because I am proud of her. I will fight for my friends because I'm proud of them. Yes. I will fight for my country because I'm proud of it. And the times when I will not fight for my country because I'm not proud of it. Like, so I think it's just a case of instilling a sense of pride.
The pull or the force needs to come from both ends. Both those entities, the national and the international entities like our governments now and the United Nations, have a part to play, most definitely, and we can't deny that. But at the same time, we say that the communities and the individual people also have a part to play.
My dream is to live in an informed and equal society.
My dream is for an equal opportunity in every single sector of the country, as well as to be a part of that in more than one way.
My dream is to have a society that is happy, basically. I know it's a lofty and stupid goal, but to have a society that can do what it wants, how it wants, and when it wants.
My dream is to empower African women through all levels of socio-economic backgrounds, and to free her from all forms of oppression, gender violence, and discrimination.
My dream is to drive an old school VW minivan from Cape Town to Nairobi.
My dream is to live in a world that has taken action on climate change.